Thank you very much, Jill, and it's absolute delight to be here to talk about this because, as many of you in the room, I am another badge-wearing data nerd, and I make no apologies for doing that. I work for an organisation called the Women's Budget Group. There we go. If you've not heard of the Women's Budget Group, we are a feminist think tank. It was an organisation that was started 30 years ago as an organisation of economists who would join up and sit and watch the budget together and produce a gendered analysis of budget announcements. It has grown over that time. We are maybe not quite a fast growth organisation, but there is definite growth in our organisation. And we aim to be the link between academia, the women's voluntary sector, and other think tank organisations. So our sort of stated aim is we put the women's issues into economics and the economics into women's issues. And of course, you cannot do that unless you have the data, unless we can analyse the data and see where women are working and measure their economic inequalities, then we can't come up with economic policies that we would like to see in order to drive gender equality in our economy. And our economy is still very gender segregated. So as the report shows this year, women are working in different sectors and they are starting their businesses in those different sectors. So there still needs to be a lot of work around, for example, women in tech and getting women to understand tech, which of course starts early and starts with the sorts of policies that we talk about with early access to education and the importance of providing funding for our early years organisations. So we do a lot of work producing lots of reports and evidence on women's economic positions, but we also know it's important to use our understanding and our skills and our research department to build capacity for women to advocate for themselves. And that's the project that I am particularly working on, the Local Data Project. And we offer free training and support to voluntary and charitable organisations within the women's sector, because while we are all proud badge-wearing data nerds, unfortunately there are a lot of people out there that are still to find the joy of spending days poring over spreadsheets. It's a bit of a personal mission of mine to show them how much fun downloading zip drives from the ONS and producing some charts from that data actually is. But once you get over the barriers with some of these women, that actually, yes, it is really empowering for them to see themselves reflected in the sort of national data sets and to be able to talk about their experiences and see those shown up in the data. So we work with any charitable or voluntary organisation that comes to us, and some of those organisations are business network organisations, because starting a business is quite a lonely thing to do. Before I worked for the Women's Budget Group, I was running my own business, and I know how difficult it is that first time you've got to take someone on and you've got to work out how to pay them properly and sorting out tax and all of that. It's a really hard, lonely thing to do. So what do women do? Well, they come together in little social networks, and I've been providing some training to those organisations. The local aspect for us is key, because we know that women are more likely to be relying on public services, and those public services are locally planned and they're locally driven. So the key decision makers that we see to actually driving towards a gender equal economy are local politicians. And you need data. If you're going to go and try and lobby a local politician to change things for you, then data is key. So that's what we do. We train people up on where to go to find that data and how to use data to communicate in a way that decision makers actually understand. It's interesting you're talking about Wales. I was actually in Wales a couple of weeks ago, training people up on gender responsiveness in transport policy. And there's all sorts of that work going on that we're driving through the local data project. And when I'm talking to those groups of women, a couple of years ago, the training that I would have provided would have been so incredibly different when I'm talking to women who are running their own business, because we couldn't see ourselves in those data sets, those ONS data sets, because all of the measures that were being used about gender inequalities in our economy are about gender pay gaps. Now, if you are running a business, as I was, I don't care about the gender pay gap. That's what employees are seeing. There are other gaps, like finance gaps that we've been talking about here, about earnings gaps, about pension gaps, whole other range of economic issues that are facing women that we just couldn't see in the data until, of course, the gender index came along, because the gender index is the only source of data that we have for women who are running their own business to talk about their position and to talk about what they want to see and what needs to change in order to give them the environment that they need. And there is still a lot of work to do. It's fabulous to hear all of the projects that are going on to educate women and to talk to them about how do you access finance. But we also understand that there are structural issues that women are facing, and I think someone mentioned the provision of unpaid care, because that is still a huge barrier to women being economically active. This is data here from the census, and you can see that there is still a huge gap in who is providing that unpaid care, and it's mostly women. And as the local data project is here to provide that link between academics and policymakers and those voluntary and grassroots organisations, I know what they would want me to tell you is that we need to work together in partnership, because there are problems that you can solve, but those structural problems, we need to see that local planning happening, because if we give women the tools, then they can go out and they can achieve things, as we've heard about. But we've got to provide women those tools in order to be able to go out and do it. Because let's get rid of this idea that women are meek and scared and don't have the ideas. Of course they do. But if we can't provide them the social infrastructure that they need in order to deal with their lives, then we're not giving them the environment that they need in order to succeed, in order to run high growth businesses, which we know that they can do. So this is just to underline my point from the OBR's analysis of the recent budget, as we all want to see that growth, talking about the policy on providing free childcare for very young children. And as you can see, I've highlighted at the bottom that providing that social infrastructure is the policy that has by far the highest impact on the potential output in the budget. So it's all about how can we help women to look at themselves in the data, find themselves in the official data sources, and then start using that to talk for themselves, to advocate for themselves for the changes that we want to see. And I cannot stress just how important having the gender index data is at that local level, so that women can see themselves and start having those conversations. So thank you very much to Jill and the team, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.